Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. During the next 30 minutes or so, I'll take you through a very brief presentation about how we perceive customer experience in Gulf International Bank. But before I start, I just would like to see a show of hands. How many of us agree to this statement? If you agree to this statement, raise your hands. If you don't agree, keep them down. Customer experience is no longer an option. It is a requirement for us to survive. Do we agree or disagree? Excellent. So if I told you 10 years ago when we were working on this concept, people thought we were crazy. We were telling people about the concept of customer experience, transforming the way the customer experiences the brand, and everybody thought we were crazy. 10 years later, everybody's aligned to what we said. However, we're still not aligned. Because when we speak about customer experience, it's about how the customer engages with the brand. And so a great example, two examples of how much we don't understand customer experience are. I was with a CEO of one of the major players in the region. And one of the things that he actually did was he was telling me how they've transformed the customer experience at the branch. And they're trying to find ways to make the customer's experience much more interesting. So the question that I had for him is, why are you sending the customer to the branch in the first place? If you were to really think about customer experience, you need to move away from it. Or another CEO of a major bank as well, but this is in Saudi, and the CEO comes and says, we've transformed the way the customer makes a payment. We've moved, now the customer can apply for a payment overseas, online, using his phone. When I asked him how many days it takes to process the payment, it was still 3 days. It was still the customer doesn't know where his money is, and it's still the customer basically being charged a large sum of money. But that's not customer experience. That's just patching it and trying to find ways of playing with channels and making things look slightly more interesting, to use a more appropriate word. So what's driving this customer behavior? Basically, in our view, while the product remains the same, the customer still wants the loans, still wants the credit card, still wants everything else. It's how he's engaging with banks that has completely been transformed. Gone are the days where we rely on socio-demographic segmentation. It's no longer about age, it's no longer about gender, it's no longer about any of that. It is about how they behave and their psychographics. What is it that makes them tick? How do they like to communicate with the organization? That is what is important. And then brand loyalty has gone. Before, banks used to say, oh, don't worry about it, the customer will never leave us. With the new digital onboarding, customers have lost loyalty for any bank. And with fintechs coming into play now, it's becoming even more challenging for banks. And then finally, with the regulators making it even easier for customers to transform and move, it's no longer an option. Banks have to transform. Otherwise, we become not relevant. So let's talk about what I mean by customer experience. I kind of alluded to it at the beginning. It's about how the customer experiences the overall brand. It's not only about I get to apply for a payment on the phone. It is the fact that I apply for a payment and within 1 hour or 1 day, my payment has been received by the recipient. And not only that, I actually know where my money went. A great example of a transformation of a customer experience is a company called TransferWise. Has anybody heard of it? TransferWise is one of the leading payment remittance companies in the world. As of today, they own 35% of the UK market share in terms of foreign remittances. What do? They've allowed a customer to remit money within a day. Not even within a day. They count it by milliseconds, 180 milliseconds, depending on where you're transferring the money. And then what they've done is they actually show the customer how much he is going to be charged in advance of him actually making the payment. So the customer now has a set of choices to make, whether he wants to make that payment or not. So it's about rethinking how the customer overall engages with the brand and with what we have to offer as banks and financial institutions. Again, I said this at the beginning, it's not about redesigning what we have and using it again to shape the customer experience. It's not moving the desktop to the mobile app. That's what we've all done. It's not about reshaping the customer's experience at the touch points such as branches and ATMs. And it's not only onboarding. Everybody thinks onboarding, they've achieved it. That means they've digitized and they've enhanced the customer experience. And it's and not around what we have already built. So the concept is every time I speak to one of the CEOs, oh, we're trying to figure out how do we enhance the customer's experience in the branch, the only reason they're saying that is because they're trying to find a way to use their branches again. And we need to move away from that thinking. And so the real question is, when we started this journey back 10 years ago, the question was, how do we change this thing? And the first thing we all agreed to as a group is we need to think like a customer and move away from thinking like bankers. And so what we did initially is we actually brought in a bunch of customers into the design story. And not only that, we also brought in people who are non-bankers from other service industries who have excelled at servicing the customer. Hotel services, telecom services, and airline services. What they told us they wanted was, customers don't trust banks. They trust peers. They trust a friend. They trust another person who actually is in the same space, same net worth, and how they've invested. What they've also told us is customers don't like inputting information. The number of clicks that they have to do on a page is very exhausting for them. Privacy is coming back. Everybody didn't really care about privacy, and it was something that we just gave away. Now everybody's starting to care about their data. We need to figure out how do we improve that. Customers won't spend time on something that is not relevant to them. Very simple example is, if I have an app and I'm a constant traveler and you keep giving me a car loan, it's not going to make any difference. But if I'm a constant traveler and you keep giving me FX rates on my app that is relevant to me, I'm going to open that app and I'm going to use it more. And then finally, support their lifestyle ambitions and also aligning to their personal values, such as globalization or plastic or saving the world or saving the trees or whatever it may be. Rethinking the customer experience. So how did we go about it? The first thing, which most banks at least haven't done, and initially when we started our journey, we had dropped the ball on this one, was we didn't have a customer experience strategy. And that is one of the most important things that you can give to the rest of the team to create alignment. The second thing is, think the best service is no service. The moment you have to answer a call from a customer, you've already failed them in terms of a customer experience, because they've had to call you because you're not intuitive enough. Think ideation and co-creation. If you can't do co-creation, which is getting the customers to get involved in the design, at least think of a way to share with them what you've developed so that they can give you feedback. Work on customer journeys. A lot of people or a lot of banks have their structures around functional. Risk management, retail, payments, everybody's in a different space. What we need to do as financial institutions is rethink how we put our teams together. And not just for a project and then move on, because that project doesn't finish there. It needs to continuously evolve. And then finally, the 3 points that we have is technology is not a solution, it is an enabler. Everybody who starts telling us they're only a digital bank, it doesn't mean much. It's what is it that you've done with technology to enable the customer to move on with their day-to-day activities. Minimize reinventing the wheel. Look, there are a lot of fintechs out there. They've already done it. TransferWise is a perfect example of a company that's already enhanced the payment experience completely. Why go reinvent the wheel and try to basically do it yourself? And then finally, people are still needed. Think assisted services. Now, a lot of people think digital banking services or enhanced customer experience is removing the human. We think the opposite. The human is essential to help the customer better understand what he or she is buying in terms of advisory services and where things get complicated for chatbots. I'm moving very fast, so if you need me to slow down, let me know. Predicting the future of customer experience in banking. AI will play a major role in payments. I think we've all figured that out. I mean, I can say it, and I guarantee you everybody before me has said it, and everybody after me will say it, and they'll say it again tomorrow. It's not rocket science. Artificial intelligence is changing the way the customer interacts with our brand and what they're getting from our banks. Conversation AI for contact centers is going to be fundamental. Customers will no longer be thinking about that they are talking to a human. Has anybody heard of Duplex as well from Google? You need to take a look at Duplex if you haven't seen it. One of the most interesting conversational tools, contact centers that you will ever listen to in your life. It was so human that now it is by law in the US that that chatbot or that robot actually has to declare itself that it is an artificial intelligence and that this conversation is recorded for quality assurance purposes. Otherwise, they basically get into trouble. That's how good that robot is. Personalization AI resulting in every interface being focused on the customer. Customers are sick and tired of getting and receiving SMSs that are not relevant to them. And so you get a car, for example, SMS or a WhatsApp message or whatever it is, when you had no intention of buying a car. Or you basically get other offers. We need to personalize what we're giving to the customers. What we believe is it's not only about the products, but it's about the interface. So personalization becomes, how do I as a customer, how do I as a bank offer the customer something that is relevant to them? If I see a customer traveling several times and getting an SMS that thank you for traveling to Dubai or thank you for traveling to welcome to the UK or whatever it is, we need to as bank be smarter and then basically give this customer an interface that is relevant to them. Could be FX rates, could be weathers, could be anything that will attract the customer to increase his on-app time. And that's one of the things we're driving in GIB is how do we increase the customer to become more on our app? And the more they spend time on our app, the more that experience actually grows, and the better the experience grows, the more they use our products. AI payments allowing decisions at point of sale. I don't know how much of you know about mBank, but one of their most recent products is when a customer goes out and tries to buy something at the point of sale and he doesn't have enough money, the system is able to immediately give him a credit line for the product that he was buying, and basically all he has to do is say, I accept, and he gets the loan on spot. That is how artificial intelligence is pushing payments to the next industry or to the next level. Another thought on payments and AI, how it's helping payments, is a company called Exchanger. When a customer comes to do a remittance, what they do is they actually give you an option, in terms of how long it'll take. You can choose the one that's the shortest time if it's very important. If it's not very important, then you can choose the one with the longest time frame. And then you get the cheaper price. So each one plays in a different role. Data partnerships will transform experiences. You have data as financial institutions, as vendors, as telecoms, as whatever it is. But your data on your own is not going to be sufficient enough to help you beat everybody else. In order for us as organizations to be able to better harness the amount of data that is out there, we're going to need to learn to partner and drop the hat of, I'm a bank and I'm being protective. And that means working with other banks. That means working with telecoms. That means working with car rental companies. Anybody who has data about the customer and their behavior. Again, I was referring to a second ago, which is highest percentage of screen time versus other banking apps. We want to try to increase the customer using the app. Customers ultimately at the end use payment solutions that are easy, that are very simple to use, not complicated, fast, cheap, whatever it may be. And so if you have an app that's offering them enough data about their transaction and everything else in advance, they're going to start using your app more. But also as well, we want to increase their ability to see their other banks. So we're relying on API, for example, to give them 360-degree view. By giving them that 360-degree view, that customer is more reliant on your app and becomes an even further advantage in terms of customer experience. This is one of the things that most banks are working on today. Advisory will play a major role. I mean, I don't need to explain this one. Every single customer wants a mortgage, wants a car loan, wants a solution for something that he needs. Having somebody who is able to give him advisory or a bot that's able to give him advisory will transform the industry. And finally, speed and timeliness of payment is no longer an option. I've referred to TransferWise as one of the solutions out there in the market that is doing exceptionally well. And these guys are coming into the market and they're attacking quite aggressively. And it's not only TransferWise, Ripple is coming around the corner as well, and also other players in the market. So we as financial institutions, if we don't adjust ourselves and start thinking about how do we utilize some of these services, we'll find ourselves behind the curve and the customers leaving the banks and going to an enhanced customer experience from the fintechs. That is my presentation for today. I'll leave the floor for 5 minutes of questions, and then after which I will leave the floor to Maya. Any questions? Excellent. Thank you very much. Why?